I want someone who can support my lifestyle, my girlfriend said when I told her the truth, and what happened next shocked everyone. I never expected 7 simple words to change the entire direction of my life. But that's exactly what happened when my girlfriend looked me straight in the eyes and said, I want someone who can support my lifestyle. It all started a few months ago, when I decided I was finally ready to be honest with her. Honest about my finances. Honest about my goals. Honest about the fact that I wasn't the man she thought I was, at least, not yet. I wasn't broke. I wasn't failing. But I was rebuilding, starting a new business, investing everything I had, cutting back on unnecessary spending. It was temporary, but it was real. For weeks, I sensed something was off. The way she scrolled through Instagram, comparing her life to influencers who seemed to live in private jets and luxury penthouses. The way she casually mentioned the kind of men her friends were dating. He bought her a new car. He flew her to Italy. He treats her like a queen. It felt like she wasn't talking about them. She was talking about me. So one night, I decided to tell her the truth. That I was focusing on building something long-term. That I couldn't spend hundreds on dinners every weekend. That for a little while, I needed her support, not financially, but emotionally. She didn't even hesitate. Not for a second. I want someone who can support my lifestyle, she said, calm and steady. Like she'd rehearsed it. Like she'd been waiting for the perfect moment to let it out. At first, I was angry. Then hurt. Then strangely, relieved. Because in that moment, I saw her clearly for the first time. Not as the girl I fell for, the fun, kind, adventurous soul. But as someone who valued the idea of a relationship more than the relationship itself. Someone who wanted a lifestyle partner, not a life partner. When she said those words, the room suddenly felt colder. Like the air itself collapsed around me. And for a few seconds I just sat there, trying to process what had happened. Trying to understand how a relationship that felt so real to me could be so transactional to her. But she wasn't done. She leaned back, crossed her arms, and continued talking in that same calm, emotionless tone. It's not that I don't care about you, she said. It's just, I want a certain life. And I've worked too hard to settle for anything less. Worked too hard? I couldn't help but wonder what she meant. She didn't have a demanding job. She didn't grow up struggling. Her biggest hardship lately was deciding which filter to use on her brunch photos. But I stayed quiet. And she took my silence as permission to keep explaining. You have potential, she added. And maybe one day you'll get there. But right now, I need more. The way she said it, like I was some unfinished product on a shelf, hit me harder than any insult ever could. I remember looking around the living room. The living room I worked 2 jobs to afford. The living room where she spent her days lounging, scrolling, and complaining about how exhausting life could be. Suddenly, everything looked different. The candles I bought because she said they set the mood. The mirrors she wanted because it looked good for selfies. The designer blanket she insisted on, even though it cost more than my monthly phone bill. It was all there. Pieces of her dream lifestyle. Paid for by a guy who apparently didn't qualify to be part of it. And then she said something that sealed everything. Look, it's not personal. It's just reality. Not personal? It was the most personal thing she could have said. I stood up slowly, because my legs felt heavier than usual. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I actually asked myself, what about my lifestyle? My dreams? My reality? I walked to the window. City lights flickered below, tiny, scattered, distant. And for the first time ever, I realized how small I had made myself in that relationship. How much of my identity I had traded for her comfort. While I was staring outside, she grabbed her phone. Not to apologize. Not to comfort me. But to text someone. I didn't want to believe it, but I knew exactly who it was. Her coworker, the guy she mentioned one too many times. The successful one. The one who always knew the best restaurants. The one with the expensive watch she, accidentally, noticed. And that's when everything clicked. Her comments. Her mood swings. Her sudden obsession with luxury. Her emotional distance. She had already checked out of the relationship. She wasn't announcing her expectations. She was preparing her exit. I turned around and said the calmest sentence of my life. "Thank you for being honest." Her eyes widened, confused, like she expected an argument, tears, begging, bargaining. But I didn't give her any of that. Because I finally understood something. Losing someone who only loved your potential isn't a loss. It's a release. She started talking fast, stumbling through excuses. "I didn't mean it like that. You're taking it the wrong way. We can figure something out." But for once, I didn't listen. I picked up my jacket, my keys, and walked past her. And just before I opened the door, I said, "You want someone who can support your lifestyle. I want someone who can support me. And those are not the same thing." I closed the door behind me. And as soon as I stepped into the hallway, something unexpected happened. Something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. Not heartbreak. Not anger. Just pure, quiet freedom. Because I finally realized that sometimes, the universe doesn't take people away from you. It removes them because they are blocking the path to who you're meant to become. And I walked out of that building not as the guy who wasn't enough, but as the man who finally chose himself. When I stepped outside, the cold night air hit my face like a wake-up call. Sharp. Real. More real than anything she had said in months. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was walking away from something. I felt like I was walking towards something. But that feeling didn't last long. Because when I reached my car, I saw something that made my stomach twist. A message on my phone. From her. Not an apology. Not an explanation. Just 2 words. "You'll regret this." Typical. When manipulation stops working, they switch to pressure. When pressure stops working, they switch to fear. I ignored it. Started the engine. Drove. No destination. Just movement. The kind that feels like breathing after drowning. And while the city lights passed by my windows, I replayed everything in my head. Every moment I overlooked. Every red flag I painted white. Every time I told myself, "It's just a phase," when deep down I knew it wasn't. Relationships don't fall apart suddenly. They drip slowly, silently. Until one day you wake up and realize the cup is empty. That night, I realized mine had been empty for a long time. Things didn't magically get better. Life isn't a movie. There were days when I felt fine and days when I felt the weight of everything hit at once. But something interesting happened. People noticed the change in me. My coworkers. My friends. Even the barista at the coffee shop I went to every morning. "Are you okay? You look different. You seem lighter. You, glowing or something?" Glowing? Me? But I didn't argue. Because maybe, in some strange way, they were right. Without her constant complaints, her constant comparisons, her constant pressure to be someone I wasn't yet, my mind felt cleaner. My chest felt lighter. My energy, clearer. I had space again. Space to think. Space to breathe. Space to rebuild. On the 3rd week, something unexpected happened. Something that changed everything. I got an email. A client, one I had been chasing for 2 years, finally agreed to meet. Not just meet. Sign. A life-changing contract. The kind that would put my business on the map. The kind that would make every sacrifice worth it. I stared at the email for a long minute, then smiled. Not because of the money. Not because of the recognition. But because I realized something. I was finally building a life for myself, not for someone else. I worked days. Nights. Weekends. But for the first time, the work didn't drain me, it fueled me. And then, exactly 1 month after we broke up, she called. I was leaving a meeting when my phone buzzed. I recognized her number instantly. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I didn't feel anger or sadness. Just calm curiosity. I answered. Hey, she said, her voice soft, too soft. The kind of soft people use when they need something. I've been thinking, she continued. And I just wanted to talk. Of course she did. People always come back when they realize the grass they chased wasn't greener, it was plastic. She said she missed me? She said she didn't mean what she said? She said she was stressed, confused, emotional. But the truth slipped out anyway. I didn't think you would actually leave. There it was. The real reason she called. She never wanted to lose me. She just wanted to scare me into staying. But I wasn't that man anymore. I'm happy you reached out, I said calmly. But I'm not the guy you left behind. Silence. Long silence. Then she said the line I knew was coming. Can we try again? I closed my eyes. Took a long breath. And then I said the words that sealed my new life. No. But I hope you find what you're looking for. She exhaled, shaky, like she had been holding her breath for weeks, and whispered. I already had it. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. But by then, it no longer mattered. I hung up, walked to my car, and felt something powerful. Closure. Not because she apologized. Not because she wanted me back. But because I finally understood. Some people love the version of you that exists in their imagination. Not the real you, and definitely not the future you. But the moment you choose growth over validation. The moment you choose self-respect over comfort. You become someone unstoppable. 3 months later, life looked completely different. My business grew. My income doubled. My stress went down. My confidence went up. And one day, while walking into a high-end cafe after a meeting, I saw her. She was sitting alone. Scrolling. Just like before. For a second, our eyes met. She froze. Completely. Not because she missed me. Not because she wanted me back. But because she saw what she lost. Not a wallet. Not a lifestyle upgrade. Not a provider. But a man who grew into exactly who he always said he would become. And someone else, someone better, now gets the version of me she never believed in. After that day in the cafe, something inside me shifted again. Not arrogance. Not revenge. Just clarity. I finally understood that some chapters don't close because of a dramatic ending. Sometimes they close quietly, with nothing more than eye contact and realization. But life didn't stop there. 2 weeks later, something unexpected entered my life. Not a person. Not an opportunity. A question. A simple, powerful question that changed everything. If you could redesign your life from scratch, what would it look like? It came from a podcast I was listening to while driving home late one night. And for some reason, it hit deeper than anything anyone had asked me in years. I didn't answer out loud. But the question stayed in my mind like a spark waiting for oxygen. I started waking up earlier. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Morning gym. Cold shower. Breakfast I actually cooked instead of grabbing something on the way. And then work. Focused, deliberate, purposeful work. I wasn't trying to prove anything to anyone anymore. I was proving it to myself. Weeks passed. Then months. And somewhere along the way, without even noticing, I stopped checking her socials. Stopped wondering what she was doing. Stopped replaying old conversations in my head. It was like my brain finally deleted a file it didn't need anymore. Autumn always felt symbolic to me. A season of letting go. A season of rebuilding. And on one of those cool, golden evenings, something happened that I didn't expect. I met someone. No, not at a bar. Not online. Not through a friend. I met her at a bookstore. Yeah, a bookstore. One of those quiet, cozy places that feel like a retreat from the world. I was looking at business books, trying to find something to help with scaling my company. And she was standing in the same aisle, holding a novel with a blue cover. We accidentally reached for the same book. Classic movie scene stuff. But it actually happened. I looked at her. She looked at me. And the first thing she did wasn't blush, or giggle, or flirt. She smiled. A real smile, genuine, warm, the kind that feels like sunlight breaking through clouds. Sorry. She laughed. You go first. I shook my head. No, you take it. I was just browsing. But she shook her head back. Persistent, but not in an annoying way. In a kind way. Let's compromise, she said. You get the book. I'll get a recommendation from you after you read it. And in that moment, without any effort, without any pressure, without any forced charm, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Ease. Not chemistry. Not excitement. Not butterflies. Just ease. Like talking to her wasn't something I had to perform. It was something I could relax into. We ended up grabbing coffee right after. Not planned, just natural. Her name was Lena. She was funny in a quiet way. Smart without showing off. Confident without being loud. And she talked to me like I was a human being. Not a wallet, not a project, not a lifestyle upgrade. At one point, she asked, So, what do you do? A question my ex used to ask like a test. But Lena asked it with curiosity, not expectation. I told her about my business. The early struggles. The growth. The breakthrough contract. The plans I was building. She listened. Really listened. Not waiting to respond, but actually hearing every word. And then she said something that I didn't realize I needed to hear until that moment. That's impressive. But what impresses me more is that you're honest about the hard parts. Nobody had said that to me before. That's when I knew this woman wasn't impressed by success, she respected effort. And that's rarer than anything money can buy. As the evening ended, she didn't hint at expensive restaurants. Didn't ask what car I drove. Didn't try to impress me with material things. Instead, she said, This was nice. I'd love to talk again. But only if it feels right for you too. That sentence alone separated her from every wrong person I had let into my life. Because she wasn't trying to secure anything. She wasn't trying to test me. She wasn't trying to manipulate my interest. She gave me a choice. A simple, respectful choice. And respect. That's something money can't buy. We started talking regularly. Not every second. Not clingy. Not dramatic. Just naturally, like two people walking toward each other instead of pulling. And slowly, without pressure, without forcing it, something incredible happened. I began to heal in places I didn't even know were hurt. I laughed more. I slept better. I felt calmer. More focused. More confident. And one night, while talking to Lena under the soft lights of a little cafe terrace, she asked, What made you walk away from your last relationship? I told her the truth. All of it. The expectations. The pressure. The lifestyle comment. She didn't judge. She didn't react dramatically. She just said, I'm glad you did. Not because of me. But because you deserve better. Long before she said it. And for the first time, I believed it. Lena entered my life quietly, without pressure or demands, and perhaps that was why her presence settled into my world so naturally. She didn't try to impress me, didn't try to test me, didn't try to measure my worth against some invisible checklist. Her calmness was disarming in a way I hadn't expected. After years of feeling like I had to perform, adapt, prove, and chase, being with someone who simply let me exist felt almost unreal. We started seeing each other more often. Sometimes we walked after her work, sometimes we sat in a small cafe near the river, sometimes we spoke for hours, and sometimes we didn't speak at all. Silence with her felt comfortable, not empty. She had a way of being present without filling the space with unnecessary noise, and I realized how rare that was. She never rushed things. She didn't demand labels, promises, or timelines. She didn't ask where things were going. She simply allowed them to unfold. One evening, after a long warm day, she led me to the rooftop of an old building in the center of the city. She said she found it by accident months ago, a hidden place with peeling paint, rusted railings, and a view that made the entire city look softer. There were no crowds, no music, no staged romance. Just distant traffic, scattered lights, the sky slowly fading into a deep blue, and the quiet sound of her breathing next to mine. We sat there for a long time. She wrapped her arms around her knees, staring ahead, thoughtful. I watched her for a while, not because I was entranced or dramatic, but because it had been years since someone's presence calmed me instead of exhausting me. At one point she said something simple. "I think people forget that peace is also a feeling." That sentence stayed with me. It was something my past relationship never offered. With my ex, everything was anticipation, tension, obligation. Peace had never been part of the equation. As we talked on that rooftop, she asked about my work, not with the sharp curiosity of someone evaluating potential, but with genuine interest in how I felt about what I was building. When I told her about the contract I had signed, she didn't congratulate me for the status or the money. Instead, she said, "That must feel rewarding after everything you've been pushing through." She acknowledged the effort, not the achievement. The process, not the outcome. And that alone made the moment feel more meaningful than any praise I had heard before. At some point I told her the full story of my breakup. Not the short version, not the edited version, but everything. The pressure, the expectations, the constant comparisons, the slow erosion of my confidence, and the final moment when she said she needed someone who could support her lifestyle. Lena listened without interrupting. She didn't add commentary, didn't make assumptions, didn't criticize my ex just to earn points. She let me talk until there was nothing left to say. And then, in a quiet and steady voice, she said, "You didn't lose anything. You reclaimed yourself." It wasn't dramatic, but it was the most accurate thing anyone had said to me. We stayed on that rooftop until the city turned completely dark and the air cooled enough that we both pulled on our jackets. On the way down the stairs, she brushed her hand against mine. Not grabbing, not holding, just a small, almost accidental touch. But it was enough to feel something shift. Not because it was romantic, but because it was unforced. Natural. Honest. Over the next few weeks, our connection deepened. Not in grand gestures, but in small, consistent moments. She remembered things I said in passing. She noticed when I seemed tired or distracted and gave me space instead of questions. She never once mentioned money, lifestyle, or expectations. With her, the most valuable currency was presence. And somewhere along the way, without even realizing it, I stopped looking back. The past no longer pulled at me. The bitterness faded. The resentment dissolved. Even the memory of my ex's words lost their sting. It was as if Lena had opened a window in a room I didn't know had been suffocating me, and the fresh air finally came in. But life rarely changes without testing you. And just as I started to feel that I was stepping into a new chapter, something happened that challenged everything I thought I had already moved past. Life tends to return what you thought you left behind, usually when you finally feel steady. That morning felt normal until I received a message from an unknown number. "Can we talk?" I knew immediately who it was. There was no anger or anxiety, just a faint recognition of something that no longer belonged to me. When I asked what she wanted, she replied, "Closure. And honesty." We met in a quiet park. She looked composed on the outside, but something in her seemed worn down. At first, the conversation felt stiff, but eventually she admitted the truth. She had chased the lifestyle she once idolized, only to find it hollow. The men she met treated her exactly as she had treated me, as someone to fit an image rather than a person. She apologized without dramatics, saying she had valued the wrong things and pushed away someone who had genuinely cared. Then she asked the question she came for. "Do you think we could have worked out if things had been different?" I told her honestly that I had wanted us to grow together, but growth isn't something you force. People don't change because they lose someone, they change when they confront themselves. By the time she did, I had already moved on. She nodded, thanked me, and walked away quietly. No final plea, no lingering tension. Just a chapter closing exactly the way it needed to. That evening, I met Lena for dinner. She noticed something different in my expression, and for the first time I realized the past had fully released its hold. Sitting across from her, I understood the truth. Some people enter your life only to show you what love should never feel like, so you can recognize the real thing when it finally appears.